It didn't start with an arrest. It didn't even start with an accusation. It started with a drop, silent, strategic, and deadly. On December 2nd, Netflix released a four-part documentary called The Reckoning. No teasers, no promotional blitz, just one cold upload. And within minutes, the industry was on fire. People thought it would be another music doc. Nostalgia, behind-the-scenes footage. But what followed wasn't entertainment. It was evidence. Within hours, social media exploded. Hashtags like had Diddy exposed, had Netflix reckoning, and Cassie Justice surged into trending spots across platforms. Viewers weren't just watching, they were investigating. And in the middle of the storm stood one man, arms folded, smirking, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. He didn't post a press release. He didn't say, "Told you so." He did something far more chilling. He teased more to come. A cryptic caption under a still image from the docuseries. "Y'all not ready for what's next. This was just the start." And that was it. That single post turned a documentary into a war drum. Because if 50 Cent was behind the curtain of this expose, then the game had just changed. Fans started digging. Who gave Netflix the footage? Who was filming Diddy that close? And how far back did the camera roll? Soon the dots started connecting. Diddy's own team had been working on a private project, a personal videographer, hours of exclusive access, hotel rooms, phone calls, legal strategy meetings, even moments with fans. But now that footage wasn't private anymore. It was public record. And the public was not prepared. When as the opening credits of The Reckoning rolled in millions of living rooms, one thing became clear. This wasn't a documentary. It was a trigger. And the man who pulled it had just gotten started. As the dust began to settle from the documentary's impact, a new question echoed through every headline, post, and podcast. Who filmed Diddy? And how did that footage end up on Netflix? It didn't take long before the mystery started to unravel. Enter Michael Oberlees, Diddy's personal videographer. For over 2 years, he had been capturing behind-the-scenes moments of the music mogul's private life. Footage meant to shape Diddy's legacy, not destroy it. But in a statement to Rolling Stone, Michael made one thing clear. The footage wasn't leaked by me. So who did it? According to Michael, it was a third-party freelancer, someone temporarily hired to fill in for just 3 days. 3 days. That's all it took to collect enough damning material to tip the scales of Diddy's empire. And what that freelancer captured was more than B-roll. It was raw, unfiltered access. Diddy pacing in a Manhattan hotel room just days before his September 2024 arrest. Private discussions with legal teams, whispering strategies. Quiet moments in Harlem where he smiled for fans. But the shadows in his eyes told a different story. It wasn't scripted. It was surveillance dressed as documentary. And once it hit Netflix, the world finally saw the mask slip. Before we go further, let's pause right here. This story is only getting deeper. If you're watching and want to stay ahead of every twist, subscribe now. Tap that bell icon so you don't miss what comes next. This isn't just a documentary. It's a real-time unraveling of a legacy. Now back to the unraveling. Diddy's response? Rage. A spokesperson for Combs blasted the series as a shameful hit piece, dismissing it as biased and irresponsible. But legal teams connected to multiple cases, especially the Cassie Ventura civil suit, weren't so quick to dismiss it, because now every frame was potential evidence. And then there was 50 Cent, the man many believed orchestrated the footage's arrival to Netflix. Publicly, he claimed no involvement in the leak, but the timing of his reaction, the subtle hints, and his history of calculated moves told a different story. 50 knew something, and maybe he was holding even more. Because in his own words, this is just the start. And that's when it hit people. This wasn't just a documentary about Diddy's past. It was the start of someone else's plan to end his future. While Diddy scrambled to contain the fallout, another man stood eerily calm at the center of the storm. Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. He didn't need to shout. He didn't need to defend, because he had already set the pieces in motion. Weeks before The Reckoning dropped on Netflix, insiders noticed a shift in 50 Cent's public behavior. No wild taunts, no trolling memes, just quiet confidence. He began posting cryptic hints on Instagram, quotes like, "The truth don't cost nothing, but a lie could cost you everything." To the average fan, it looked like just another 50 moment. But to those paying attention, it felt more like a warning shot. And then came the bombshell. Not from 50 directly, but from Netflix on December 2nd, a four-part documentary exposing Diddy's hidden life, right after 50 had launched his own G-Unit film and TV partnership expansion. Coincidence? Not likely. Because what many don't know is that 50 Cent has been quietly building his empire not just in music, but in media and investigation. His fingerprints have been showing up in true crime productions, insider exposés, and even unreleased documentaries. And now fans were asking the inevitable. Was 50 Cent behind the scenes helping Netflix build The Reckoning? He didn't confirm it. He didn't deny it. Instead, he leaned into the mystery. "Let's just say this is just the beginning," he told one reporter with a smile. And the internet erupted. YouTube creators, TikTok theorists, and even major outlets like MSNBC and TMZ began tracing the connections. Old G-Unit members who once clashed with Diddy, former Bad Boy insiders who reappeared in the documentary, 50's past feud with Diddy over business, music, and moral principles. This wasn't just beef, it was a chess match. And 50 had played the long game. He knew the power of image. He knew how to weaponize truth. And he knew something the world was just starting to realize. When the mask falls, it's not always the person under it who suffers. Sometimes it's the entire empire. Because Diddy's empire was more than music. It was brands, businesses, sponsorships, global influence. And as the reckoning racked up views, the world's view of Sean Combs began to shift. Rapidly, and still, 50 Cent said nothing. No victory lap, no diss tracks, just a single post, a photo of a chessboard, no caption. The message was clear. Checkmate was coming. Some stories are told in boardrooms. Others are whispered behind closed doors. But the story that cracked the surface of Diddy's private empire, it started on a yacht, a luxury vessel drifting off the coast, champagne flowing, celebrities smiling, and cameras seemingly nowhere in sight. But behind the laughter, something darker was brewing. In the days following The Reckoning's release, internet sleuths locked onto one segment that stood out. It wasn't just the interviews. It was the sudden appearance of footage from a private yacht party, one that had never been made public before. No paparazzi were there. No official media had been invited. Yet there it was. Crystal clear visuals, ambient audio, moments captured so intimately that viewers felt like they were intruding on something that was never meant to be seen. At first, people assumed it was recreated, AI generated. But then came the confirmations. Insiders recognized details. The deck layout, the guest list, even a bracelet worn by a model spotted in older paparazzi shots from that same week. The footage was real, and it was raw. It didn't show crimes, not directly, but it showed power dynamics. It showed control. It showed women being asked to sign NDAs before boarding. A chilling reminder that even in celebration, secrets were currency. And then came the whispers. Was this the party Cassie referenced? Is this where the original NDA scandal began? Who filmed it? And how did it leak? According to reports released days later, the footage didn't come from Netflix's own crew. It was allegedly captured by a freelance videographer hired to fill in for a day, someone who never fully understood the weight of what they were documenting. And when the moment came, when they saw the storm forming, they passed it on. To whom exactly? That's still debated. Some say 50 Cent's production team. Others believe it was leaked independently and acquired legally. But here's what no one denies. This footage cracked open a vault of credibility. Suddenly, what had once been rumors, the yachts, the secrecy, the veiled coercion, had a visual anchor, a timestamp, a face, a setting too intimate to dismiss. And for viewers, it wasn't just shocking. It was invasive, like the audience had stepped through a hidden door into Diddy's protected world and discovered that the rules of power in that world were negotiable only to him. But in this game of silence and exposure, the rules were changing because once the footage hit the screen, it couldn't be unseen. The internet dissected every frame. Creators uploaded breakdowns. Attorneys began linking the yacht footage to old legal complaints. Victims began reaching out to journalists, no longer afraid. And 50 Cent? He still said nothing. There's a moment when silence becomes too loud to ignore. And for Cassie Ventura, that moment had been building for years. Long before Netflix aired a single frame, her story lived in the shadows. Known to a few, dismissed by many, buried under headlines of fame, fashion, and flashy love. But then the reckoning aired, and suddenly, everyone was listening. The documentary didn't just allude to Cassie, it centered her pain. For the first time, surveillance clips, frantic audio, and quiet, tear-stained interviews pulled back the curtain on what she allegedly endured behind closed doors. No longer was she the silent ex-girlfriend of a music mogul. She was the survivor, the witness, the one who decided her voice would no longer be drowned out by power or PR. The footage showed moments that didn't need narration. Cassie's eyes said it all. Glances that flickered with fear, smiles that looked forced, and clips where her body language screamed what her words had never been allowed to say. And then came the clip that broke the internet, a hallway confrontation, a slammed door, a voice, unmistakably Diddy's, raised in a tone no one had heard publicly before. Was it conclusive? No, but it was visceral. And for the audience, it was enough to believe. The social media reaction was instant. TikTok was flooded with breakdowns. Reddit threads exploded, comparing Cassie's original 2023 legal complaint with timestamps from the documentary. It all aligned. For those who once doubted her, who dismissed her as dramatic or seeking attention, the footage demanded a reckoning of their own. And in the days following the documentary's release, Cassie's legal team filed a new motion. This time with the public behind her, with proof, not just words, with frames that matched testimonies, and an audience too outraged to look away. It wasn't just about one woman anymore. Cassie's voice became a symbol. For the women who signed NDAs in silence, for the staffers who looked the other way, for the insiders who once whispered, but never screamed. And here's the twist that made the silence deafening. Diddy didn't deny the footage. No official statement. No lawsuit against Netflix. Just silence. And in this case, silence sounded a lot like guilt. Meanwhile, 50 Cent posted nothing about Cassie. No meme, no comment, just one emoji on an unrelated post. But the message was clear. He didn't need to say it, because the world was already watching, and Cassie was no longer alone. While the world scrambled to process what the reckoning had unleashed, one man sat with a look that said, "I told you so." Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, a mogul, a provocateur, but more than that, a strategist, because what the public saw as a sudden strike had been a long game, years in the making. You see, 50 had been hinting at Diddy's downfall long before Netflix rolled a single frame. The cryptic Instagram posts, the jabs in interviews, the sarcastic laughter when reporters asked him about Combs. He never outright accused, but he didn't have to. He knew what was coming, and when the documentary finally dropped, 50 didn't react like everyone else. No rants, no press tour. He simply posted one line, "Told y'all." That post? Over 2 million likes in 24 hours. Because the internet knew he wasn't reacting. He was revealing. And behind the scenes, it went even deeper. Insiders began leaking whispers that 50 Cent had invested in production companies connected to the docuseries. Not front-facing, not with his name on the credits, but tucked behind Shell LLC's masked in licensing agreements and embedded in legal clearances. Was he a producer? Not officially, but was he involved? You'd be a fool to bet against it. He'd been acquiring footage, working his relationships, leveraging his own past beefs with Diddy, not for gossip, but for timing. And then came the ultimate flex, a quiet teaser. 50 Cent told Ari Melber in an MSNBC interview that more was coming. More footage, more revelations. He didn't say when, he didn't say how, but he looked straight into the camera and smiled like a man holding all four aces. This wasn't about music. It wasn't about chart beef. This was personal. This was strategic revenge, executed with precision. Because while Diddy built an empire in the spotlight, 50 Cent learned how to dismantle one from the shadows. He didn't need to scream. He just waited until the entire house of cards was shaking. Then he gave it one last push, and the empire began to fall. As the documentary took over timelines and trended globally, one chilling question echoed across every platform. Where did this footage come from? Because this wasn't just archival material. This wasn't paparazzi photos or public interviews. No, this was something far more invasive. Behind-the-scenes hotel room conversations, legal strategy sessions, footage so raw, so personal. It could have only come from inside the house. The world speculated wildly. Had Netflix gone rogue? Had someone hacked private servers? Was it an internal betrayal? Then, 10 days after the documentary premiered, Michael Oberlees, Diddy's longtime personal videographer, dropped a statement. He wasn't the one who leaked it, but someone else might have. In a bombshell letter shared with Rolling Stone, Michael claimed a freelancer, someone hired to cover for him for just 3 days, was the one who mishandled the footage. 3 days, that's all it took. A stranger with a lens, inside Diddy's circle, watching, recording, collecting. No contract dispute, no unpaid bills, just a crack in the armor. And through that crack, the storm blew in. The leaked footage included hotel room scenes from days before Diddy's September 2024 arrest, clips of him pacing nervously while his legal team debated defense strategies, snippets of private meetings in Harlem where fans swarmed him unaware of what was coming. And the most stunning part? Everything matched. The footage synced perfectly with public records, court documents, and Cassie Ventura's original claims. It wasn't just storytelling anymore. It was evidence. Legal experts flooded the airwaves. Never in modern hip-hop history, said one CNN analyst, have we seen this level of documented behavior from a public figure, delivered not by prosecution, but by production. And yet, despite the case, Netflix stood silent. 50 Cent, silent. Because when you strike with this kind of power, you don't need to explain. You just let the footage speak for itself, and it did, loudly. As the documentary spiraled into a cultural phenomenon, one name kept surfacing, again and again, Cassie Ventura. Her story had once been dismissed by many as tabloid drama, a relationship gone wrong. But now, in the light of Netflix's The Reckoning, every chilling detail she shared was being re-examined with terrifying clarity. The footage, the timelines, the emotional breakdowns, it all clicked. Clips showed her visible discomfort at high-profile events. Recordings captured tense exchanges. Photos revealed bruises covered by makeup, eyes that told stories her lips couldn't. And then came the NDA bombshell. A segment in the documentary showed a legal document, allegedly signed under pressure, that barred Cassie from ever speaking about certain aspects of her life with Diddy. It wasn't just emotional trauma anymore. It looked strategic, controlled. Like silence had been bought, one page at a time. The documentary played back portions of Cassie's past interviews, some from over a decade ago, where she had hesitated, paused, or changed subjects when asked about her personal life. Suddenly, those pauses felt louder than any words. And as viewers saw side-by-side footage, Cassie's old interviews matched with Netflix's exclusive clips, there was no doubt left. She wasn't exaggerating. She was surviving. Her legal team immediately responded. Leveraging the new material and its public reaction, they contacted federal authorities demanding a formal review of her original settlement. The outcry online was seismic. #Justice for Cassie trended globally. Fans, lawyers, survivors all demanded that her story be reopened. Not for drama, but for justice. What Netflix had done wasn't just documentary work, it was forensic storytelling, layered, researched, undeniable. And at the center of it all stood Cassie Ventura, not just as a victim, but as the trigger that redefined public opinion on one of the most powerful men in music. The storm outside the courtroom had been raging for days, millions talking, thousands reposting, and a media frenzy with no signs of slowing. But now the storm was coming inside. On December 10th, at precisely 9:00 a.m., Judge Arjun Subramanian entered the federal courtroom. The air was different, thicker. anticipatory, as if everyone already knew history was about to change. Federal prosecutors stood ready, not with rumors, not with Reddit threads, but with hard drives, with footage, with synced timestamps and digital forensics that lined up like dominoes. The Reckoning wasn't just a documentary anymore, it was evidence. They began with the timeline, outlining dates, locations, and moments captured on camera that matched sealed case files and forgotten reports. Then came the witness accounts. Anonymous voices in the documentary now had names, dates, and signatures. And then they played it. Raw footage, uncut, clips from Diddy's hotel suite, tense conversations, confidential meetings with lawyers, whispered talks about what's coming. You could hear every breath in the courtroom. No one moved, not even Diddy. When the footage paused, the silence was louder than the audio. The prosecutors then submitted side-by-side comparisons. Court documents versus Netflix footage. Old settlements versus newly surfaced NDAs. Allegations versus corroborated digital evidence. Judge Supermanian leaned forward, reviewing everything with surgical focus. Then his words cut through the tension like a blade. This case no longer represents a single incident, nor a civil matter. The material presented reveals a long-term pattern of calculated suppression, psychological manipulation, and abuse. You could feel the shift in the room. No more celebrity privilege. No more smoke and mirrors. The courtroom became the stage for Diddy's public reckoning, and Netflix had just handed the gavel to justice. Outside the courthouse, crowds had gathered. Protesters, fans, media vans, street vloggers. Every lens pointed toward the building like it was the center of the world. In party, the walls were closing in. Diddy sat motionless as the judge's words echoed in his ears. The man who once ruled the charts, built an empire, and shaped pop culture now looked small, powerless. And then came the blow that no one expected to come this soon. The court announced that based on the documentary evidence and new corroborating testimonies, Diddy's 50-month sentence would be reconsidered in a new hearing. It wasn't just a retrial, it was a complete dismantling. Prosecutors proposed life imprisonment based on the pattern of abuse, manipulation, and potential connections to unsolved crimes, including the high-profile murders of Tupac and Biggie, now officially flagged for reinvestigation in light of new documentary-linked footage and timelines. Everything was unraveling. Years of legal armor, celebrity protection, and public relations strategies were crashing down like a house of cards in slow motion. And as the judge scheduled the final hearing, Diddy collapsed in his seat. Not metaphorically, literally. Security rushed to support him. His legal team froze. The crowd gasped. The man who once danced in music videos and owned the spotlight was now a headline in his own downfall. And somewhere across the country, 50 Cent posted a single image to his Instagram story. A gavel, no caption, just a gavel. He didn't need to say anything. The world was already watching, and Diddy was falling. What started with whispers and court documents had now turned into full-blown chaos. Inside the courtroom, you could feel the weight of decades catching up. The glamour was gone, the bravado stripped. What remained was a man staring down a reckoning too large to outrun. Prosecutors brought forth new testimony, leaked timelines, and footage allegedly filmed in secret, all introduced as potential triggers for federal escalation. Diddy's legal team scrambled. Every new claim brought another crack in the walls that once protected him. And the Netflix doc? It wasn't just a documentary anymore. It was evidence. An investigator stepped forward and referenced moments captured in the reckoning. Moments that, if authenticated, could connect Diddy not only to civil abuse cases, but to serious allegations tied to the deaths of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls. The courtroom fell silent. One prosecutor leaned into the microphone and said clearly, "If these new details hold, this moves beyond celebrity. This becomes federal." That word, federal, echoed like a death sentence. Back outside, fans and protesters stood side by side. Some yelled for justice. Others defended their icon, but no one could deny the collapse had started. On Instagram, 50 Cent posted again, a short black and white clip of a collapsing building. No caption, no voice. He didn't need one, because the message was clear. This isn't just a fall from grace. This is the fall of an empire. As the courtroom battles raged and social media swirled with theories, something shifted behind the scenes. Diddy's longtime allies started going quiet. Producers who once defended him suddenly declined interviews. Old friends stopped showing up. Industry voices, once loud in their loyalty, became noticeably silent. It was the sound of self-preservation and of knowing too much. Then came a leak. Whispers of a second wave of footage. Unreleased, darker, said to involve a location never before discussed publicly. A private island, an offshore party, and a list of names that no one wanted on record. 50 Cent didn't speak. He didn't need to. The last post on his feed was a chessboard. One piece left standing, the queen. It wasn't about bragging anymore. It was a warning. People close to the case began receiving anonymous messages, not threats, just reminders, NDAs, settlement amounts, flight logs. Suddenly the focus shifted. This wasn't just about Diddy anymore. It was about the system that let him operate. Was this a Hollywood secret or an industry-wide disease? The documentary had opened the door, but the real question now wasn't what Netflix had exposed. It was how many people hoped the rest never came out, and whether someone, anyone, was willing to stop it. There's a strange kind of quiet after chaos. The news cycle slows, hashtags fade, viewers move on. But inside the world Diddy once ruled, nothing feels the same. His mansions, once alive with parties and cameras, now stand still. The courtroom that once echoed with media frenzy is silent, waiting. But no one believes this is the end, because 50 Cent is still watching. He's still teasing. And if there's one thing he's proven, it's that he doesn't move without a strategy. He doesn't start wars he doesn't intend to finish. Sources close to the production whisper that a part 2 of The Reckoning may already be in post-production, with darker stories, bigger names, global ties, and the footage still coming in. One insider compared it to a volcano. The first eruption was shocking, but it was only the beginning. What's buried deeper could level everything. And that's what makes this moment so haunting. Because Diddy's silence isn't peace, it's fear. Because Netflix hasn't confirmed anything, but they haven't denied it either. Because 50 Cent, who used to joke, is now speaking in chess moves, war metaphors, and cryptic captions. This isn't just the end of a documentary. It might be the beginning of something bigger. Hollywood has its secrets. This one just happened to get caught on camera. And if the next drop happens, it won't just shake Diddy, it'll rewrite the legacy of an entire industry.